Hello and welcome back to another edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. My name is Andrew McKeever. Today is Monday, February 16th, and it is a great pleasure to have with us today in the studio Representative Monique Priestley, who is representative of a district up in Orange County, which includes the towns of Bradford, Fairleigh, and West Fairleigh. She is also the vice chair of the Joint Information Technology Oversight Committee up in the State House, which is primarily what we're going to talk about today. You may be wondering, boy, she made a long drive down from Bradford to up in Orange County to come here. But she came here to help us understand a little bit more about an initiative she's helping to spearhead about big tech, big technology, and artificial intelligence. So, Representative Priestley, again, thank you very much for making this time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Well, my pleasure, and again, my compliments to you on your road warrior-ism here. That's a long drive down from Bradford. I really appreciate it, because it's so much more fun doing these sorts of conversations in person as opposed to over the Zoom. Mm-hmm. So anyway, well, I guess just to back up for a quick second, you were here back last, November, December in Manchester, at the Manchester Community Library to give a talk about this initiative you are working on, People versus Big Tech. It's a town hall series you're doing with VPIRG, the Vermont Public Interest Research Group. And it was a very interesting conversation that you had there. So after that, I knew immediately we had to have you here in the studio to talk some more about it. So I guess just to get started, what are your concerns about big tech? And I guess what do we mean when we say that term? Are we talking Google, Meta, the big technology companies that we're all familiar with, or is there something more to it than that?
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me, Andrew. So I think first, to answer the big tech piece, like generally what we're talking about when we're talking about artificial intelligence, data privacy, youth online safety, I think in general we're actually talking about like big data, big pharmaceuticals, big healthcare, big cars, big insurance, big banks, big retail, big everything. But in order to try to encapsulate something, when it comes to like politics, it's so much easier to latch onto a term that everybody generally understands and can wrap their head around very quickly. And so big tech, especially when it comes to players like Google and Meta and Amazon and those kind of things, those are typically the drivers of what we're talking about. And so that's why we chose the label big tech.
Okay. So what are the concerns about it? Is it that big tech is growing so big that they're sort of going beyond just being successful companies, but also posing concerns that people might have about their data privacy being shared where they're not expecting it to be shared?
Yeah, I think in something we cover in the town hall, I think the biggest concern is that data is being collected on people and then being used in ways by companies, in ways that they don't realize, by companies they don't know, for reasons they're not privy to. And so something we cover in the town hall is we would have people say well, I'm not on Facebook, or I don't go on the internet, or I don't have a mobile phone, so I don't have to worry about this stuff, or I'm not sure if I have to worry about this stuff. And what we went over was a lot of examples of things like your car insurance being adjusted automatically by companies because your car is recording your driving habits and then basically tattling on you. I think something that's been blowing up in the public recently is things like Ring cameras, so doorbells with cameras that used to just kind of be capturing things and make you aware if somebody's at your door. But a couple months ago, they had announced publicly that they were doing facial biometric, basically biometric facial scans of your face to identify who was not only at your door, but who is walking by your door. And then that leads to things like, sharing with the government, and then things like ICE, which is a big concern for Vermonters in particular, I know. But then also just things like, are your mortgages being adjusted based on information that is being collected on you? Is your is your rental prices to your apartments, or your grocery prices, or your airline prices? And the connection to this is that if I'm going on something like Facebook and I'm liking things, that's one thing. But then these companies also have everything that I'm searching on the internet. It has every time I've ever signed up for a form anywhere, even if it was maybe handwriting and then somebody put it online. These all go into like building profiles that then are being used to do things like dynamic pricing, which is adjusted based on your socioeconomic status, your age, where you live, your race, your gender, what you like, how desperately you need to buy something. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that's happening basically about them and on them all the time, whether or not they gave consent.
So then what's the risk or downside that people should worry about? I mean, I think it's fairly clear that people assume that when they go on the internet and search the web for whatever, whatever websites they happen to go to, theoretically should be their own business and everything. But when your insurance or your driver's licenses or even voting records perhaps are scrutinized, then how can that information be manipulated or used in some way that's, not in your best interest?
Yeah, I mean, so many ways. So one, we just went over like pricing that could actually, push a price like that you want to pay for a product online to the ultimate like height that a company thinks that you'd be willing to pay based on the profile. So just based on like your activity and who you are, not based on necessarily what the product actually is and how much it's worth. It's what they think you will pay for the product, which can get scary. But I also think like this is going to things like just undermining our democracy and journalism and things like that. In that like if I go to most media websites or social media feeds or things like that, like they are curating my feeds and the content that I'm seeing first in my feed based on who I am and what action they could get me to take. And so that can get really manipulative as far as like keeping us in bubbles, getting us enraged, making us afraid, making us confused, misinformation. And so that really starts to like eat away just as society generally is what we're seeing. Yeah.
So how can the government, either at the state or federal level, kind of regulate that in a way that finds a good common ground between the interests of both the technology companies and individuals? I mean, is there something that is not being done at this point that you feel should be happening to protect people from some of those adverse effects?
Yeah, so there's lots of things I feel like we're so far behind. But generally, like the last kind of like big privacy bill that protects everybody federally, which really only comes to like affects government data, is the Privacy Act of 1974. And then have been a series of really like specific privacy laws when it gets to like health information when it's in a transaction with an insurance company, so HIPAA, FERPA when it's education data for students in certain cases, video rental history, but generally consumer protection bills, ones that protect like our interactions online or interactions with organizations, with businesses. There isn't a federal level protection for people, and so each state is basically trying to pass one of those for people. Additionally, there's things we could do like State Information Practices Acts, which is actually the trying to protect and give consent and visibility into what data the state governments can share with other entities, including the federal government. And yeah.
So you have a bill in the State House, I think it's H 791. Is that what it will aim to do to protect people?
I don't know all my numbers on my bills. Oh, is 791?
791, yeah.
State Information Practices?
Right.
Okay, cool, okay. We haven't taken it up yet. So, so State Information Practices is trying to look at, the thing that I heard from the public in addition to the consumer protection bills and trying to protect kind of like online behavior is things like our governor sharing SNAP benefit data with the federal government and before that was basically the Trump administration trying to get that information and then us sharing with it, and things like ICE. So at what point should the data of Vermonters be collected and shared, and or sold with any other government or entity by our own state government?
This would seem like something, though, that would be the role of the federal government. I mean, wouldn't it be a lot easier to do it on one national level as opposed to 50 probably different rules and regulations that the individual states would come up with?
Yeah, so when it comes to like the State Information Practices Act, there's only like 5 states who have actually passed that so far. That's actually a more rare bill. S71 from the Senate was a copy of H208 from the House, and that's the consumer, so the Vermont Data Privacy Act. And both of those should be something that we deal with at a federal level as far as I'm concerned. The problem is the same thing that we're kind of running to at the state level, in that data is money, it is power, some people equate it to oil, where it is worth a ton of money, and it's worth a ton of money to the companies who are collecting it, who are sharing it, who are selling it. And so that means with that brings lobbying pressures, both inside the state as well as from outside the state, and millions of dollars being spent on each one of these bills. And so if you think about that at the federal level, how much money, if we're seeing millions of dollars in spend per bill, how much pressure they're under to not pass something. So it becomes really difficult for them and also for us.
So this gets really complicated really quickly, doesn't it? I mean, I'm just trying to think, are there some like kind of legitimate purposes that some of these companies might,
Sure.
Feel like this is useful information, helps us do our work better.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually it will improve the product we're trying to sell, and maybe we can reduce the cost of that.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I think everyone kind of feels increasingly, I suppose, more leery about their privacy being somehow or another co-opted, and what they think is their own business turns out, no, it's not. I mean, I imagine you must have heard a lot of that in the town hall series that you did.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's of course legitimate uses. So things like businesses that want to collect, say like nonprofits want to collect donor lists, or small businesses want to be able to figure out who to sell their products to, or they want to be able to collect things like information on websites to make it easier for people to browse their websites, things like that. And then we get into things like once you start feeding data into AI, we want businesses, ultimately bigger businesses working on this, and research institutions and things like that to be able to use data to solve, cure cancer, or there's all types of improve cars with the autonomous systems, make sure they are safer. There's all kinds of legitimate uses. Often in this space, we're up against we need data to prove who people are so that fraud doesn't, we can combat fraud. I think the problem that we run into though is that businesses and just basically all of the websites are, Google, Facebook, they all have trackers that in 2026, for a business to think that they can compete, they are told to install trackers on their websites that can help them see how many website visitors do I have, where did they come from, what were they looking for. The problem with that is things like Google and Meta are using that information as well, and they're using that in things like auctions. That is what serves us ads on the internet. And so just to give a real world example of this kind of undercutting things in a way that we don't expect is, say I'm in Bradford, we have Farmway. So say I'm going on the website and I'm looking for a blue shirt. Great, I want to be able to do that. Say I don't buy that blue shirt, and then I start going off about my day and looking around on the internet for other things, or I'm researching, stuff for my personal life or business or whatever, and I keep getting ads from Amazon or, Walmart or whatever it is for blue shirts because it knows that I'm into that. Like, it is now following me everywhere. And it actually is giving basically the upper hand to the bigger businesses that can afford to place ads in front of my eyes so that maybe I don't go back to Farmway to buy that blue shirt because Amazon has presented this blue shirt ad in front of my face 5 times in the last day. So there's like ways that this information is undercutting our local economy and supporting small businesses, but also there's information, say for the these businesses are collecting, basically participating in this economy without necessarily realizing that when they have these trackers on their websites, if I am engaging with their business, they're now part of a much bigger thing that is tracking all of my behavior everywhere. So whether or not I'm like going from searching for that blue shirt, and then I have a family member with cancer and I'm looking for cancer on a healthcare website, it's tracking, it's building all of these little building blocks of my, like, who I am and who my family is and my business is and my friends are, and making that into that profile that is really hard to say that I ever consented to having any one of those entities collect those pieces of information on me, because nobody asked me if those were building blocks that I wanted in a profile about who I am. And so that is a big profile that not only just makes it so that I can be manipulated on things like journalism websites or my social media feed, but then also there's people who target businesses to steal their data, and the more information that any one business has on me, the more vulnerable they actually are to being attacked. And actually, each record that they have on a person is a fine if they get breached. So they're actually putting themselves at a big monetary risk for having just all the information they can, not just the information that they need on me to actually conduct their business. So everybody's just kind of collecting all this information all the time without thinking about the ramifications and whether or not people actually want this.
I was wondering, did you get any feedback from Vermont-based companies saying, hey, we understand your concerns about privacy, but this is useful information to us and it helps us stay competitive?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, it's funny because I would say the businesses that we heard from first are the bigger members of trade associations, which Google is a member of, and so there's lots of money being spent to make sure that members of certain organizations are the ones that we hear from first and the loudest, and also Google and Meta. Businesses tend to have Google My Business profiles and Facebook pages, and so when legislation like this comes up, they will send out emails. I just got a copy actually from a lobbying group where an email went out to I can imagine all of the trade members, and it says Vermont privacy bills are going to kill your business. Would you like to talk to us for 20 minutes to learn why and how? And so of course that scares everyone, and we hear from them. At the same time, given the town halls and taking more time to actually reach independent businesses, there's also people that are just as afraid of what data privacy is doing to undermine their business, and so we're also bringing in their voices. But yeah, there's I think the thing that is coming up is that the lobbying efforts that are basically in the building driving the messaging are often a Google or a Meta or a big voice saying that these bills will make it so they can't advertise anymore, or that they will no longer be competitive, or they can't hyper-target people, or that they won't be able to improve their websites, or they won't be able to track everybody all over the web. And some are also worried about the fact that they use things that do things like facial biometric scans, as ski resorts say, to let people in without them having to do anything manually, or taking pictures of people and then being able to use them as advertising. And so we're trying to protect people's faces. We're trying to protect people's identities, and make sure that they're consenting when they're used for monetary gain, basically. I think the thing that is really difficult is that in our bill we took lots of extra steps to talk to experts from industry and from businesses to make sure that our laws weren't going to interrupt commerce and weren't going to interrupt the flow of what makes sense. It strikes a balance between business needs and like a person's rights to not necessarily be known and have their face everywhere. And the messaging kind of gets conflated in that we're going to like destroy the economy when we say like you can use certain information that a person provided or is basically like required to do a certain service. And if they want to opt out and stop that, then they should be able to. Right now, a person has no right in Vermont to have their information deleted from the internet, have their information corrected on the internet, to know where their information is, and to know how their information is being used. And I think that like people need more agency.
Well, let me pivot slightly for a moment then to talk about something that you've already alluded to a couple of times, and that's the whole connection to all of this with artificial intelligence, which I guess, just speaking personally, I'll say every day I get more and more paranoid about. I mean, on the one hand, there's this fascinating tool that you can make your work a lot so much easier. There are all kinds of other ramifications that we're starting to learn about, what jobs will it destroy, and all of that, and perhaps create at the same time. But I guess, what is your feeling about AI or artificial intelligence as we're seeing it develop? Because it seems like this is a project that has many upsides and some tremendous potential downsides. And yet, again, we're sort of shooting forward into this future. We don't really know where it's all going to land. Billions of dollars of investment being thrown around out there that theoretically could be going to other things. I mean, do we know what we're doing here?
Largely, I don't think so, right? So again, it's like the biggest players and the biggest powers in the world are generally the ones who are operating like the infrastructure to have AI exist. Hard stop. And like you said, billions, if not trillions, of dollars. Sure, there's good uses for healthcare, there's good uses for making vehicles more efficient, there's more uses for fraud, there's more uses for education. It helps us in our work, makes us more efficient. But also tying this to data privacy is like, we don't have protections on all of the data that's being collected on us that is then in ways being fed also into, like, a concern is how is our data then being fed into these systems that are being used to like generate different work products or act on our behalfs, and then how once it's like in that kind of like black box, do we have any control over it once it's there either? So I think like with the artificial intelligence stuff, for instance, like right now, it is. There's concerns where people will use like ChatGPT as therapy, resources for therapy, because we have such a crisis in like mental health, availability of mental health workers, with mental health crisis, isolation crisis, and with kids turning to these things to be friends with, and having these systems like tell them to kill themselves or kill other people or, there's I'm not even gonna get into it. There's some crazy uses of the chatbots. The most fascinating thing for me in this artificial intelligence space is it is a super bipartisan or like cross-partisan issue, and that we're all concerned about how it's going to like undermine our humanity, and also like it's just dangerous right now at this point. And yeah, big tech companies and everything are saying like it's too early to regulate because we don't know where we're going to be, so you should wait until we get there. I don't know how many people that means that it kills in the process, honestly. Like there are articles about people using the therapy bots and stuff, and then committing suicide and things. And also like just thinking about the application of like we're using ChatGPT right now to say like, ask a basic question or write me a summary or write me some interview questions. But I've been in rooms of like some of the world's top organizations. And there's a question asked of how many of you are using agentic AI. All of the hands in the room went up, which terrified me because I didn't think we were there yet. And that means so the agents are basically like, basically artificial kind of like bots on our behalf. We'll just imagine them as that, as a way of explaining. So say that I connect ChatGPT or any other system to my email, to my calendar, to my phone, to my health insurance, my credit cards, all that kind of stuff, and have it start carrying out tasks on my behalf. It could start as something like, order me a pizza, and it does that whole thing, and you get a pizza at your house. But then is it like, decide what I'm doing this week, or decide what my errand list is this week, or order my plane tickets for me, or like manage my family's calendar this week, not thinking about like how much data does it take of every family member to put into the system to know where they're going, who they need to talk to, what they need to eat, what time they have to go to bed, what their healthcare appointments are, what the kind of healthcare issues they have. That all ties to credit card numbers, just making us like, how much information are we going to like feed into these systems without thinking about how that's going to be used and the vulnerabilities we're like opening ourselves up to, I guess.
One of the things that kind of really opened my eyes on what the potential downsides was the image of an attorney in Minneapolis being altered to, darken her skin. First of all, she's African American, but made her even darker, and showed her crying as she was being arrested just during some of the events that were going on in Minneapolis over the past few weeks, instead of the original footage, which showed her being very composed. So it really speaks to, wow, I mean, all of a sudden we could be in a situation where the video we're looking at could be not what really happened. It's a manipulation of that.
Yeah.
And I guess right now there's absolutely no regulation around that. That's not illegal or wrong in some way.
Yeah, so I've been tying this to a very specific example. Say like one of the feedback we were hearing, say from the ski resorts, is like we want to be able to like collect people's face scans so we know who they are, so they can just walk in without much time, basically. And I'm thinking like, okay, but what else do they know that they don't have any legal protections over how their face is used otherwise and where it is? And so I was actually at Drexel Law School in Philadelphia last Monday talking to a law school class about this. And one of the professors he specializes in basically the origination, it's called provenance of data and images and videos and that kind of stuff. He said you can do one photo of somebody's face, 3 seconds of audio to create like an endless amount of videos that look and sound just like them, like perfect deep fakes. That's not much as far as protecting our voice and protecting our images, like thinking about what we put on Facebook. And so, we don't have any protections right now over that original data that is being fed into these artificial intelligence systems. And it is terrifying. People who are watching could like look up an example of Will Smith eating spaghetti. I just watched this video where they tried to do this meme in 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026 of him, and it's an artificially generated video of him eating spaghetti. It's pretty bad the first couple years. The next one, they create this whole basically skyline zooming into his dinner with what I think is maybe like a sun or something, and like perfectly eating spaghetti and having a whole conversation, and just completely generated with AI. And I would have thought it was real.
One of your colleagues in the State House, Representative Matt Barong from Virgins, I understand, has a bill in the State House that would prohibit misleading media from using artificial intelligence within 90 days of an election. Because I'm thinking, boy, you could easily use that technology to have one candidate's words being twisted into something else. I mean, I'm thinking back to the 2024 election. Wasn't it then President Joe Biden's words were manipulated in the New Hampshire primary, I think, something about don't bother going vote or something like that.
Exactly.
So we're already pretty well along this track.
I would say, yeah, some of the thinking about trying to manipulate images to make a politician say or do something is one thing, and then also the voter intimidation is a whole nother. I'm co-chair of a national task force for Future Caucus, a national AI policy task force, and we had was in a fellowship when we went to actually election division in Colorado, and they showed us the whole voting system. But then they just showed us content of deepfake calls where people were getting phone calls saying, there's been a bomb threat at your local election place. Don't go there today until we say it's clear. That was, so people just were afraid. They didn't go to their election spots because they were like, this isn't a real, this is basically an example that they gave, but it was a perfect human-sounding voice. And they could even ask questions, and it knew how to respond in order to make sure that the person didn't go. And so thinking about that type of technology being deployed to keep people from voting is horrifying as well. Yeah.
So given all of that, I mean, I guess I find it hard to understand why, at least at the federal level, we couldn't just have a regulation that says, look at folks, we need to just stop right here until we figure this all out. I mean, is the argument like, well, yeah, but if we stop, the Chinese will keep on going and they'll come up with stuff and they'll beat us to the game?
That is definitely one of the arguments that is being spun for sure. On the counter of that, though, is a lot of national security people saying that the more that we don't protect our data and the data of Americans, we are actually very much at risk for Chinese hackers and things like that to take over systems. So. There is, the Trump administration they actually did kind of an executive order to put a pause on any type of artificial intelligence legislation at the state level. And they tried to do it a number of different ways through Congress, and Congress declined to do it. So it's not actually a valid, legally binding thing, but it is an executive order. And the main argument was we're going to fall behind other countries. But I think a lot of critics and experts will say it actually puts us more at risk from a national security standpoint because of how unprotected we are.
Yeah, well, this sort of disinformation, misinformation piece is I don't know, to me deeply troubling. I mean, if all you really need to do is cast doubt on something, and then you've won the argument. You say, well, how do we know that that's really what they said?
Right.
Or whatever. I mean, we think political discourse is complicated and confusing now. My gosh, when you're seeing two people talk and it may or may not be what they actually said.
Right, and that feeds, this connects all of this kind of stuff where if other countries are trying to sow discontent and basically get us to all fight each other internally as a country, that would be a very effective tactic. And right now we're not very guarded from other countries being able to do deep fakes and then sow misinformation, disinformation to get us to fight each other either.
Oh, so what's the way out of all this?
Regulation. Bipartisan regulation.
There must be something that can be done. I don't know, but I guess given the amount of money that seems to be involved in all of this, with these data mills that are being constructed, and with a whole lot of ancillary other issues around. I mean, do they drive up electric rates, for instance?
Do they
use too
misuse
much
our water? Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you would think that. There's enough issues in play here that somewhere along the way people would say, I'm sorry, Mr. Altman, it's time to take a break here. Before we have to run, I just wanted to also ask you, though, about something that's, I guess, connected in some ways, or we can't connect it, but on the surface it's probably kind of different. You're also one of the co-chairs of the Rural Caucus up in the State House. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your work there and what's going on and what, if anything, the Rural Caucus might be doing, connecting with big tech and AI.
Yeah, and actually, if I could just maybe add to, like, if people want, like you mentioned the lobbying pressures. I don't want to leave on a negative note that it's like all doom and gloom and we can't do anything. People engaging in this process. I just had a group from Bristol the other day come just to talk and learn and figure out how they can help. So the People versus Big Tech, or my like PriestleyVT.com website has steps that people could follow to like reach out, because this isn't a lost cause. We just need more Vermonter engagement on the ground. But yeah, so Rural Caucus, speaking of engagement, is so we have a meeting every Wednesday morning, 8 to 9. People can join on Zoom or come to the State House and vtruralcaucus.com. Yeah, we are generally trying to look at housing and Act 250 and basically development, barriers to housing development, housing creation. But also, like, we're going to look at, rural transformation money that came as far as like innovation money for that the state got when it comes to rural hospitals. So pros and cons of like the money and how that's impacting the rural hospital system is something we're looking into. But we, in general, like it is our we have so many small towns, and it's really a platform for all the small towns to come together and look at the issues that are kind of being driven by generally party leadership. We have I'm the Democratic co-chair, we have an independent and a Republican, and so we're always looking at kind of all the different issues and saying like, are the most rural towns having an equal voice on things when it comes to like housing development and permits, and if not, then we kind of we get loud. So
I just wanted just to kind of close and kind of maybe
Yeah.
tie some of this together. Big tech and technology in general, little tech for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's often been held out as a way or an opportunity for small rural towns to boost their economies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could not only just on the individual level, but a company could come to a town and create jobs and all of that. Is that something you see as being a promising path forward for some communities that might have seen a factory that was kind of the economic bedrock of the community closed down, and they would come in and then sort of fill that void?
Yeah, I think, so you're thinking about like data center infrastructure, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it could be, or any kind of firm that's kind of
Yeah.
going to be making equipment perhaps even,
Yeah.
or
I think generally we need to actually just be, I think Vermonter's actually doing a good job being critical of trying to look into, like, say, the Amazon coming into Williston or things like that, where I think Vermonter's asking the right questions, like, will this actually create jobs? Will this be more extractive? Whatever it is. Will this be more beneficial or more extractive from the local economy? If it's a data center, will it actually use too much water? Will it negatively affect our environment? And so I think in general, when Vermonters engage, when they show up and they ask questions, it leads to good things. And so I just encourage people to like look into that. I think it's going to vary where you are in the state and then what the entity is that's trying to like move in.
All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it there for now. But before I go, is the tour that you're doing still underway, and are you
Yeah.
having meetings like the ones you had in Manchester still happening?
Yeah, so people, vsbigtech.com, for so people can see the tour dates, but we're probably going to add 4 more in the next couple weeks, and then maybe continuing adding them. We've got, we had, what did we have? We've had like 10 so far, 11, all over the state, and we had requests for like 35 more towns. So we're trying to cluster those, but it's been amazing. And if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, it's been really fascinating and really helpful and energizing to talk to people.
So clearly there's some interest out there about this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Well, thank you again, Representative
Thanks,
Monique
Xavier.
Priestley, for making the long drive down from Orange County to share your you're thinking about this. It really is quite an interesting subject, and one I'm highly confident we'll be hearing a lot more about as we go along.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Anyway, all right. Well, thanks again. Thanks to all of you who've been sharing part of your day with us, and well, we'll see you again the next time. Thank you very much.